right. Hey, good afternoon. It is Tuesday, September 10th, and I am still Rob, that developer dad. And I'm building a dotNet application that is going to help me when I'm running my D&D games. And my players say, hey, what's the blacksmith's name? And what do they look like? And all of that stuff. Because I'm not great at coming up with those details on the fly. And in fact, it just happened this past Saturday's session, where we're playing, and my wife's like, "So what's this person's name? And what's that person's name?" And so on. And I ended up with like a couple of sailors that they had rescued that were shipwrecked, Bob and Wilson. And yeah, had this thing been up and running, and I had a decent internet connection, I probably could have just generated, bam, a couple of useful NPCs to chuck into the mix. But alas, my application was not quite at a runnable state yet. But we're working on it. And today we're working on, or actually so far this week, we've been working on getting the subscription and usage metering and control code in place and finished, and we're running towards the finish line. I did do a good bit of work between this morning and now to finish out these resource access components. I've got a couple more methods to finish implementing. I've got quite a few distractions today. There's stuff going on. We've got a sick kitty. My wife just tested positive for COVID. I'm feeling a little funny in the chest, so I hope I don't have it too. That'd really suck. I got COVID for my birthday this time last year, and I really don't want to get it for my birthday again this year, but I feel like it's 2 years is a coincidence. If I get it next year, I'm just going to say screw it and call it a tradition. So yeah, let's see how much more progress we can make on this this afternoon. So right now I'm handling an error that could happen when we're loading a subscription for a client or for a user, where I'm trying to populate the quota objects on the subscription, and those quota objects may not exist. So I want to make sure they do. So let's do a GUID error ID equals GUID.new GUID string message equals, we're going to use interpolation, could not find either the storage or AI token quota for user ID. All right, now we're just going to add that error ID and message. There we go. Hey, what's up, C-Films? How are you, man? And I think I want to go logger.log warning. And let's see here. I've got message, event ID exception. No. I'm just going to log a message string. And it's going to be error ID, message. Bam. And logger might be null. So if it is null, we're not going to do anything. And let me think. Do I want to throw? No, but I do want to return the result. Now, if we do have our usage quotas, I'm going to say storage equals storage quota. And this will be the token quota. And I think we're good. Anything else to go in there? Nope. And there we go. We set the quotas into the result payload.quota property. Fall out of here, assign the result payload to the result.payload property, and return the result. And we are in a good spot. So I've got load, I've got renew, I've got start. Let's do cancel real quick. And we are going to say op result of user subscription. Result equals new. Do that. Return result. Async. Now try. Catch. Exception E. That's got to be a big E. Pardon me. All right. First, let's get the subscription. And var sub equals await load current sub for user ID. If sub is null, good. Error ID is one of those. String message equals could not load the subscription. The user ID logger dot log warning error ID message operation cancel subscription. Oh, Rob, come on, man. There we go. Back here. And I need to result.add error ID message oop return result. And good. Error ID equals new good. String message equals, and I'm going to come back to this. Find a current subscription. And error occurred while canceling the subscription for user ID. ex.message, and it's just e.message, Come out the end. There we go. Logger dot log error. We're going to send e and error id dot to string. Error ID, error ID, message, MSG, boop. And then, of course, rather than throwing, we just add the error. Return the result. Var result payload equals load current. No, wait. Dir. My watch telling me. Oh, Siri just told me happy birthday. Ah, that's funny. Okay, so var reload sub op equals await load subscription user ID if reload sub op dot is was successful, we will result dot payload equals reload sub op dot payload, else result dot for each var error in reload sub op dot errors close that block, result dot add error, error dot key, error dot value. Boop. And that's a lowercase e. Save it. So, if the sub is null up here, we're going to add an error, we're going to log it as a warning, and we're going to return our result. So, here we go. Sub dot unsubscribed date UTC equals underscore today. Bam. And that's just the date. I think I need to declare a now. Date time now. Date time dot UTC now. Now, if they are canceling immediately, basically I get a notification from my payment processor that they canceled and got a refund, or that a refund was issued. If cancel immediately is true. sub dot period end equals now. It needs to be UTC. Excuse me. Goodness. We also need to zero out any remaining token quota. Set budget equal to consumed. So var quotas equals await ctx dot user quotas dot where I'm having a minor disagreement with myself over how I want to structure this query. Async t dot user ID int token quota to PLT ID equals templates. Metered resource kind dot AI detail dot to string dot ID and also t dot quota template ID equals token quota template ID. So we'll await CTX quotas. It may be null. Okay. And it's not quotas, it's just quota. If quota is not equal to null, quota dot updated equals now, quota dot current budget equals quota dot consumed budget. CTX dot user quotas dot update that quota object I'll pop up here. This is all cancel immediately. Good. Now I'm going to update CTX dot user subscriptions update sub, and we are going to await CTX dot save changes async. Bam. I want to know if save changes async uses an implicit transaction. And rather than derp around on Google. I have a question about the latest version of Entity Framework Core. When I update multiple context objects, then call save changes async, does the SQL operation happen within an implicit transaction, or do I need to surround all that work with a transaction context? I just want to update. I want to confirm this stuff. Okay, when you call save changes async, it automatically wraps all operations within that save changes in a transaction. Good. So this actually gives us sort of an implicit unit of work type thing. Now, if I have a transaction context, I believe that's what it is, or if I'm working with multiple DB contexts, then I do need to use a transaction scope. Or if I know I'm going to be calling save changes async, or even just save changes multiple times during the execution of a series of resource write transactions, then I need to wrap it in a transaction scope. But here, I don't need to worry about it because we're using transactions implicitly. Beautiful. Okay, I'm glad I confirmed that. So ctx.savechanges async, and then we fall out to here. We load the subscription. We do all the things. All right. Now, I do want to also confirm one more thing. Okay, great. Now, to confirm, if I call save changes async, and then within the same method, within the same request context, run a query using that same DB context, I won't catch an error about multiple active result sets. Will I? I feel like Bing is losing its mind here. But what I will do is when I'm reloading my sub, I believe in load subscription. I am doing it. Yes. So I factored out the query that loads the. I actually like Bing AI quite a lot. See films? Sometimes it goes to sleep a little bit, but I gotta say, Microsoft's GPT wrapper is really quite good. Like, it's pretty able to made it or roll back. It doesn't seem to be emotional. It's quite good, especially when I'm dealing with dotNet queries or Microsoft centric technology questions. Um, no surprise there, of course, because it's got ready access to Microsoft Learn and MSDN and all that stuff. And I find that it's just much more efficient for me to have a Q&A session with Microsoft Copilot through Bing AI than it is for me to dig through like Stack Overflow or ask OpenAI or whatever, because Microsoft Copilot actually rags in the web queries to these resources. It's quite nice. So yeah, for the use cases that I use it for, I think Bing AI is great. The image generation is pretty good. It's certainly good enough for the use cases that I have for it. So I did a thing earlier this morning with load subscription because I found that I had to be constantly accessing the current subscription for the user in the subscription provider. So I moved the actual query into a private async method and added a discriminator where it's for update, and I gave that a default value of true because most of the operations in here we are loading the subscription to update it and write it back. But when for update is false, I add as no tracking to my iQueryable here. And what that does is it tells Entity Framework, go and get this data object, but don't hold it in the context's memory. Because this is just for read only. I'm going to chuck this down to the UI or to whoever's requesting it, versus go get this object. I want to do some work on it. It's just go get this object, make a copy. We'll throw it down the line. You can forget about it as soon as you've handed it off to me. And this actually saves us a good bit of RAM, especially when this access component starts to get busy. It is quite nice. And I do need to apply this over on the NPC provider and probably in my user quota access provider as well. But I believe we've got cancel. I want to save animals. Yeah, when it's practical. I mean, if it's a wolf trying to eat my face, then no, I probably don't want to save it. But I mean, oh, RAM. Ha! Yeah. If this were running on my own metal, I'd probably care less, but it's running on somebody else's computer that's charging me for the resources that I consume. And I want to consume as few of those resources as possible so that I don't get hit with a ridiculous bill every month. Although, you know, I've got this engineered in a way, and right now during development, I'm just using like free grants from Microsoft, like the free app service, the thing for development and testing and demo and POCs, and I've got like their free tier of the Azure SQL database. The only thing that I'm currently paying for is AI token consumption. I got my bill for August yesterday, and it's for a whopping 4 cents. So I'm not that worried about it yet, because by the time this opens up and people are using it, people are going to be paying for it. And that's why I'm doing all this subscription stuff right now. So we've got extract reserves quota of kind. This is load. I don't want to review this one. I want to take a look and make sure I've hit all the points here. So we get the subscription. If it's null, we throw. Well, don't throw, but we return early. Update subscription. to expire at end of current period. If we're canceling now, do that and zero out any remaining AI token budget. Save. User quotas, user ID, quota template ID. Coffee, it's like it's a place where you can go to basically chuck some money at me if you like what I'm doing. It's like, instead of donate now or tips or whatever, it's, hey, buy me a coffee. And that's something that you can do if you so choose. Because this is what I'm doing for, to pass the time and to keep myself sharp while I'm in between employers and stuff. But I am currently unemployed, so donations are very, very welcome. But it's not something I flog. I don't want to turn into like an NPR or PBS pledge drive or anything like that. So I just let the bots say, hey, my coffee page is here. So yeah, I could probably change the wording on that message to be a little bit more assertive, but So we have canceled everything. We've updated the database. We reload the subscription. And then plop that into our result payload and send it on down the line. So that's that. Good. I need to add one more method to my ResourceAccess SQL provider. And I'm going to go to the definition of the contract. And let's pull this over here. Oh, yeah. Thanks. I've been looking for months. And let me tell you, dude, this job market is it's for the birds. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Unfortunately, it's really, really hard to get a conversation with the people that know how to see that I have those skills, because HR doesn't really understand software development. And hiring managers also, well, the resume has to get through the recruiter, and then it's got to get through HR to the hiring manager. And then hiring managers are so budget constrained these days that they're trying to hire people that could do the jobs of 3 or 5 specialists in one person, but the salary and compensation budget is for one person. And to get one person who is a specialist in the 3 to 5 areas costs as much as hiring 3 to 5 of that specialist. So it's really rough to find something that fits me, that isn't going to burn me out, that doesn't have me doing stuff that I'm not good at. And yeah, I'm hoping it's going to turn around soon, but we shall see. So I need to add one more thing, and it's going to be a task of op result, and it's not going to have a return value. It's just going to be log token consumption. And I need some data for that token consumption call. Add a class. It's just going to be a token consumption entry. Let's spell it right. Entry. Boop. It needs to be public because it's coming in from outside. And I have a bunch of stuff for token consumption. Copy this, paste it here. Doesn't need the ID. Does need who did it, date, time. Rename this to UTC. This is a string. Prompt tokens, completion tokens, that is also a string. Save. ctor function name equals string.empty. User ID equals string.empty. Model ID equals string.empty. But I appreciate the acknowledgement. C films. It's nice to see people think that. So user ID, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I don't want this stuff to be modifiable after the object's been created. So we're just going to set all of these setters to init. You bonehead. There we go. Oh, stop it. Copy. Paste. 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 And we're good. All right. So token consumption entry. This guy is going to accept a token consumption entry. And I have to spell it right. Meter entry. Bam. All right. So log token consumption, blah, 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 blah. And let me come over to quota access. Oh, that's great to hear, man. Thanks for that. What's your usual environment? Quota access. Here we go. And I want to push this up just below here. V. Now let's do one of these. Outlining. Collapse to definitions. Things are nice and tidy. Ah, okay. LAMP. Linux, Angular, something, and Postgres. I can't remember what LAMP stands for anymore. Like there's mean and mern and this and that and the other thing. Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. Okay. Why? Oh, yeah, PHP. Duh. I was about to say, why would you use PHP and MySQL? But because those are two different technologies. My brain turned PHP into Postgres for some reason, and I... All right, so token consumption entity needs to become a SQL model. So I need another transformer, and we'll just do this on the usage data transformers. And I'll just add public static token consumption SQL model to row this token consumption entry DTO. But I mean, a lot of the stuff that I'm trying to, okay, yeah. A lot of the stuff that I'm trying to do here, honestly, is totally mappable to whatever stack, or at least that's my goal. Like the architecture and the underlying patterns and all of that stuff, and the way we break up our applications into components and assemble them and so on. You can do that with literally any stack. And that's kind of, I'm using C# and dotNet because that's what I've been living in for a long time. But the principles, the underlying fundamentals apply no matter what you're dealing with. I haven't used Java. I remember looking at Java in my early 20s, and I didn't have the foundation or the proper understanding of object-oriented programming, and I got lost. And I was broke, and I didn't have access to a reliable machine, and the tools weren't free at the time. Kotlin, I haven't even looked at. I understand it's a flavor of Java. Consumption. Like, I believe Kotlin and Scala and all of these other things are just flavors. I've dabbled with F# a little bit, like just kind of played with it and read up on it and stuff. And it's interesting to me, but I haven't found a use case where I've really needed its specific, opinionation and so on. Certainly there's aspects of functional programming that I really like having the concept of immutable classes and so on. That's really wonderful. I like doing that as much as I possibly can with my code anyway. And F#, I believe it's the only way you can do things is to have immutable objects. But as far as doing like a full thing with it, I haven't run across a scenario where I've needed functional programming like that to the extent that it would make sense to do the entire assembly in F#. If that makes sense. User ID, I need to populate imprints time UTC. I need to populate function name, populate model ID. Oop. Need another couple of commas. Prompt tokens and completion tokens. Good. And save. So there is my type converter. I can come back out here and token consumption SQL model. Come on. Row equals meter entry dot to row ctx dot token consumptions dot add row await you become async await ctx dot save changes async. Boop. Now I gotta wrap this whole thing in a try catch. Op result equals new op result pow return result. And we're going to have a very, very, very short intermission while I go get rid of some of this coffee. I'll be back in just a second. And something just blooped at me. I don't know what it was, but I'll be back in just a minute. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that delay. Here I am. But yeah, I mean, PHP, I've looked at PHP code in the past, and I can debug it if I have to, because it looks enough like C# that I can work my way around it. I can tweak it and so on. Building a brand new PHP app from scratch, it'd take me a while, but I'm pretty sure I could pick it up fairly quickly. Java, same thing. I'd have to learn the idiosyncrasies of the language, of course, but I could probably pick it up. I wouldn't be like senior level Jedi master of it, like in a week. It might take me a few months to get really, really comfortable with the languages, but I'm not afraid of them. But having no professional on paper job experience with either of those languages, I don't even bother applying for jobs that are looking for those. Just because, like, the automated applicant tracking systems have their little filters in them, and if the job they say must have 40 years in Java experience, well, nobody's getting that job because Java happened in the 90s. And if I'm going to be applying for senior developer positions or architect positions or lead developer or whatever, I want to be able to step in and start kicking some butt on day one. So, string, what the heck am I doing? Message. I don't even need to do this. I do need the GUID. I've got my head way up my butt right now. Years of experience can be hard to measure because 20 years of frontline development at the bank, working through the various flavors of Java Spring or Spring Boot or ASP web forms to MVC to this to that the other thing, like doing the same thing for 20 years. Like, you could have 20 years of build experience, or you could have 1 year of experience repeated 20 times, where you don't really learn anything, you don't really grow, stuff like that. Um, I've played up and down the stack. I've got enough experience to know where I'm comfortable and where I can really make the computer sit up and bark. So I know where I'm looking. Logger dot log error, and I'm just going to throw error ID dot toString. Boop. There's that. And result dot add error. And error ID. And an exception occurred while recording the token usage log entry. Save. And save all. All right, I have my resource access providers for user subscriptions and quotas. Yes, yeah, absolutely. I'm still not going to roll with something I could do unless I get desperate. I'm not going to go for something that I could do in my sleep because I'm just going to be bored to tears and won't be staying long. And chances are the types of jobs that I could do in my sleep don't pay what I need them to pay. So I'm going to be also continuing to look. And it's just a bad scene with all that. It takes time for a developer. I don't care how long they've been working and doing stuff. It takes time for a developer to actually become useful in any organization. They have to learn the organization's domain, that organization's particular idiosyncrasies within the domain, their way of doing things, stuff like that. It's like the on-ramp tends to be fairly long, and I don't want to be that guy that shows up at a company, they start bringing me up, and then bam, 6 weeks later, I get an offer that's like, ooh, yes, because I accepted the job at company A because I needed something. And then, it gives me a bad name. It gives whoever brought me in a bad name. It's no good for the company because they've just spent all those resources bringing me up to speed on their stuff, and now I'm gone. Like, that's yuck. I don't want to do that. It feels wrong to me. Now we need one more class in the SQL provider. And it is going to be called a dependency builder. Boop. It's going to be public, and it's going to be static. Now, I'm going to run up to this guy, and I'm just going to pop you into a new horizontal document group. There we go. And we have a public static iService collection. And this class that I'm adding right here is just a little helper class with some helper methods. Yeah, I've seen something similar, and I don't know how I feel about this culture of flipping jobs every few years anymore. I mean, I'm a child of boomers, and like my dad was a school teacher. He held the same job from before I was born until well after I had moved out of the house. He retired like maybe 10-ish years ago, maybe closer to 15 years ago now. But I I hate hopping jobs and stuff like that. It's just ick. I like steady stability. So iService collection, use quota access, SQL provider, this iService collection, services. I also need configuration. Now I got to resolve some references. Use that. Use extensions.config. Run down here. First thing I type is usually the last line. Return services string, connection string equals configuration dot get connection string. And what's the name of that bad boy? Oh, where did I put it? Oh, magic strings make me vomit. If cn equals null, throw new invalid operation exception. Cannot start the system without the user data connection string. Bam. So what I'm doing here is I'm just creating some extension methods that make it easier for me to configure the dependency injection container out in the main program. So first I grab the connection string. If it's null, I throw, and then I go services.add scoped of I quota access. And then we do a lambda expression on the service provider that is provided. I need to do this. Boop. Oh, come on, doofus. There we go. Pop that in here. Logger factory. Log factory equals sp.get required service of logger factory, because I need to provide one of those, and I need to reference Microsoft extensions for it. And logger of and it's covered up. I need the name of the damn class. Quota access SQL provider. quota access SQL provider. Maybe nullable. Maybe nullable. Log factory dot create where am I working here? Okay. Well, people move jobs more often than they used to get better benefits, better pay, et cetera, et cetera. But also, I mean, like, companies want to espouse this, oh, we want loyalty, but they don't give it. Create logger? What is going on here? Log factory dot create logger of type thing. All the way out to the end. Good. Now I say quota access SQL provider SVC equals new. And I need to pass the connection string and the logger. I'm going to do that. Come back to the start. Here we go. And return SVC. Pow. Yeah, people job hop these days because it's become really the only way to have our salaries keep pace with inflation. Because, you know, hiring and compensation budgets get frozen all the damn time and blah, blah, blah. And it's, I don't know, man. It's complicated. Use user subscription SQL provider. Oh gosh, yeah. Less than 10, I want to say. And they're all really close to 50. Yeah, the whole employment scene and work scene and all of that stuff, it's changed a lot, man. It's different from even when I was younger. And we'll turn services. Okay. And pardon me. String. CN equals dot get connection string user data. Ooh. That's what it's called, right? Yeah. You know what? This is required. There we go. Turn that into a constant, so I don't have to keep remembering it. If cn equals null, throw new invalid operation exception, cannot start the application without the required, let's spell it right, connection string. Otherwise, we do a servikeys dot add scoped of I user subscription access and ilog factory lf equals sp.get required service of I logger factory make it nullable logger of user subscription SQL. There we go. Logger equals lf dot create, do the thing, make sure the line's terminated correctly, make that nullable. User SVC equals new. There we go. Good. Return SVC. Pow. All right, so that stuff's good. Now I can incorporate those in here. So here's our townsfolk services and dependencies. Rule set access, all of that stuff. I'm scrolling the wrong way. SQL access provider added okay. All right, and could not attach the SQL providers. Providers added okay. Builder dot services dot can't do it yet. I have to add the reference. Doop, doop, and boop. Come down to the UI dependencies, and I need metered usage access and the metered usage access SQL Server. Do it. And I gotta go to the top. This is something that for complex applications or applications that use a lot of that have a lot of moving parts, this kind of makes me bonkers. Dot metered usage access dot with a T dot SqlServer. Like this list of usings gives me some heartburn. I'm really not in love with how gigantic that gets. And it kind of causes me to think it's a bit of a smell. But now I could do builder dot services dot use quota access builder dot configuration and builder dot services dot use user subscription SQL provider. There we go. All right. And let's make sure it spins up, and then I'm going to call it a day. I'll do the integration tomorrow. But I want to make sure those dependencies spin up without too much difficulty. Now I can come back here and I can close that secondary tab group. And here's this. And let's take a look at, oh, thanks, man. I'm making headway. Like, I've got my sign up, sign in stuff through Microsoft Entra working. If I try to hit the NPCs page right now, the database is sleeping, so it's just going to error out on me. But yeah, it knows who I am now. And I think you've been watching while I've done the AI invocation and saving stuff off to the database and all that good stuff. So yeah, progress is happening. Not as quickly as I'd like it, but I only work on this. I usually only work on the code while I'm actively streaming, and I try to only stream about 2 hours a day. But I'd love to just hit this 8 hours a day until it's done. So, okay, so we spin up and we're ready to start integrating. So before I call it a day, that's Azure. Let's open a new window, go to GitHub. Come on, Rob. GitHub. Okay. All right. I'm being given things to keep track of. All right. Implement usage tracking, resource access, create user context class. That starts tomorrow. So I can, yeah. Use throughout system. Let's edit this. Okay. Define, instantiate, and start. Using a user context class. Populate the basic info, user ID, name, etc. from AD. Yeah. From AD, populate subscription info from the new user subscription access. Start logging usage as it happens. Create a usage manager with public methods for the common usage tracking tasks. Link that in to the services on the app. So object-oriented programming is great when it's single process, running on your local machine, no external resources or limited external resources. As soon as you start making network calls, OOP starts to break down a little bit. And you have to start thinking about service-oriented programming. And that becomes a whole lot more design-minded. There's nothing wrong with imperative or procedural or what have you. One piece of advice I could give you if you're trying to be a little bit more functional about your applications and the projects that you're working in is have a class that holds the data that you're dealing with, the state of whatever object you're working with. And I'm pretty sure PHP has the concept of classes and instances and objects and so on and so forth. But keep one class that's just the data, the state that gets collected from the user or displayed back to the user. And then you have another class that actually manipulates that state. And then if you've got common calculations that are used throughout that state manipulation stuff, pull those out into another class that your manipulator, your state manager uses. It could be like a calculation engine. So data goes into the calculation engine, you get the value back, and then you apply that new value to your state object. Rather than having everything within that one object and have that one object responsible for maintaining its own state, recalculating new values when new values need to be recalculated, fetching from data, storing to data, pushing out to the UI, all of that stuff, because then that object becomes very, very brittle and hard to change and hard to think about. But if you start thinking in terms of this is the thing that gets displayed on the screen, this is the thing that makes changes to that display object, but the thing that makes the changes doesn't actually know how to get the values. That work is delegated off to other classes that your manager has instances of. I don't know if that helps at all. The townsfolk manager actually is a great example of that. There is a API workload manager in here as well that I could show you. And let's take a look at iCharacter workloads. So iCharacter workloads is just a list of things that an end user can do out in the UI, or a list of methods that can be done or that can be invoked by things out in the UI. So we can generate NPCs. There's a number of different flavors of this. I do need to delete this. There's, getting the JSON value for that, generating the attributes, which is just like getting the randomly rolled ones. There's a describe NPC up here somewhere. And so what happens is the actual concrete version of this interface has an AI workload manager and a townsfolk manager. The NPC manager is responsible for randomly creating or randomly picking the basic attributes for any NPC. as well as saving it, retrieving it, and that's really about it. The AI worker is responsible for communicating with the AI subsystem. That's all. And this guy stitches that stuff together. This is just sort of a super proxy type thing. And it doesn't really do a whole lot of its own stuff. Describe NPC is probably the one deviation from that. And generate attributes, there's not a whole lot going on here. Oh yeah, that's right. Generate attributes is calling out to the AI. Parse from JSON. This is just a helper method, but it's private. Generate NPC. Again, calls the townsfolk manager. Do all that work for me. Return it. And this thing is what's responsible for translating between the user application and all of the back-end stuff and stitching the workloads that are provided by those back-end stuffs together to create the features that I want to offer in the UI. And that means if I make a change inside the NPC manager, as long as the stuff that goes in and comes out of it doesn't change, I don't have to worry about breaking anything anywhere else in my application. I can do whatever the heck I want within that NPC manager. Same thing with the AI stuff. I can change the way the AI parts work until I'm blue in the face. And as long as I don't change the public stuff, what goes in, what comes out, I can do whatever I want in there. And even if those things do change, if the inputs and outputs from this character workloads class don't change, I don't have to touch anything in my UI. When I change the way these features are delivered, or rather, when I change the way the features happen in the back end, I don't have to change anything out in my UI. The only time I should have to change something in the UI is if the data I'm collecting changes, or I'm adding a new feature, or I change the actual structure of the information that's painted out to the end user's browser. So yeah, instead of pursuing like functional programming or OOP or whatever, I would say start thinking in terms of just organizing the structures of your code instead of chasing any buzzwords or patterns or this or that or the other thing or what have you. Just start thinking about the structure of the applications you're writing and how you can make small tweaks to those structures to make them a little bit easier to think about and a little bit easier to work with. And I bet you'll see your productivity and satisfaction with what you do on a day-to-day basis really start to climb. So all that said, I got to call it a day. My brain is starting to get tired. I'm going to update that GitHub issue so that I've got some breadcrumbs for tomorrow. And I will see you all tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern time, right here. Take care of yourselves. See Films, thanks for hanging out, man. I've enjoyed our conversation. Happy coding, dude. And, reach out if you got other questions and stuff. Reach out on Twitch or whatever, and I'll do my best to answer as best I can. All right. Take care, folks. Have a good day. Happy coding.